So this is a speaker meeting. Our speaker will share his experience, strength, and hope for approximately 45 minutes. We ask that out of respect for our speaker, everyone remain seated until our speaker is finished. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for the evening, Pat M.
All right. I'm Pat, I'm an alcoholic. I want to thank the people from Texas coming all this way to see me. That was very kind of you. I hope I don't let you down. You too, Scott from South Dakota. Thank you, John, for asking me to speak. I go till like the end, right? Okay, cool. Midnight. All right. So, just going to share a little bit of my story this evening. Like they say, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. For me! Yeah. Oh, that's very kind of them. Okay. So, just a little bit about myself. My sobriety date is March 1st, 2019, so I just got 3 years a couple weeks ago. My home group is the Broad Highway group. We meet Wednesdays at 5:30 at United Methodist Church. And I try to stay active in the program. So yeah, I'm just going to get right into it because I feel very awkward right now. I feel very awkward when I start, and then I get going, and then I feel good, and then I don't know why I was so nervous. So, all right. So let's see. When I grew up, I was a happy kid when I was young, as most young kids are. You know, I grew up in a really good household, great parents, great family, lived in a nice area. Nothing really to complain about. I think that after a little bit of time, like around 5th grade, I had moved a bunch of times. I was at 6 different schools when I was in 5th grade. And that might not be a lot for some people. Some people have obviously had rougher childhoods. That was just something for me that happened. I can't really blame my alcoholism on that, but that was something that happened in my childhood. And it was around 5th grade that I started just feeling like anxious all the time. I used to be a kid who could just like make friends with anyone. And then, I don't know, all of a sudden I started like going inside of myself. I was very depressed and anxious. I had a hard time talking to people like I am right now. All right. Okay. So, anyways, I actually was against drugs and alcohol growing up, believe it or not. I saw like things on TV. I remember an episode of Seventh Heaven where they caught him smoking pot, and I thought it was a big deal, you know. I remember seeing the DARE officers come in and talk about all the negative things about drugs and alcohol, and I believed them. I mean, there's a lot of compelling reasons. Like they talk about like the drinking and driving. They show you some horrible things that happen to families, and I was like, yeah, this is pretty bad. I don't really want any part of that. This is a fun fact, in 5th grade, during that time of extreme fear, I won an award for writing a paper about why I'll never drink alcohol and smoke cigarettes. It's true. I spoke in front of the whole school. Could have used a couple drinks to get through that one, but it's just ironic, you know. I had a good head on my shoulders. My folks knew me as someone who like never lied. I had a really hard time. I don't know. I was just very honest. So let's fast forward a little bit. Just going around, being a kid, you know. So my first introduction actually to drugs and alcohol, my parents kind of just drank like here and there, like a couple glasses of wine at dinner, nothing really. I never seen them really loaded. Saw my dad tipsy once at a wedding, but other than that, like my parents, you know, don't do anything other than that. I hadn't seen anything. And My sister, I have a sister who's a few years older than me. I should back up a little bit. I'm from Pennsylvania. I'm not from Arizona, believe it or not. I'm actually one of the rehab rejects. It's true. I went to 10 different rehabs before I got sober because I thought that would help. So anyways, I have a sister who's a couple years older than me, and she was starting to go out and party. So I was in like 8th grade when she started to go out and party. She was in 10th grade, and she would come home kind of drunk and high, and I was like, you can't do that. Like, this is really bad. Like, I heard the Seventh Heaven episode. Have you seen the episode? I'll show you the episode. And, I don't know. I was trying to tell her, like, hey, you should not do this. This is a bad idea. And she's like, bless you. She said, like, it's really okay. Like, she would tell me about, like, how much fun she was having, her going out and having a good time. And I couldn't help but notice that, like, everything was all right. Nothing bad was happening. She was lit up, and she wasn't like a cool girl by any means. She wasn't funny. I was supposed to be the funny kid, and I saw her, like, she made all these friends with like the older kids. She was having a great time, and that interested me, to be honest. A little bit else about myself. I was brought up, I went to Catholic church. I really didn't feel any type of way about it. It was just, it ruined Sundays for me, that's all. It was just boring for me. I mean, I was a kid, it was boring. I wanted to watch cartoons, play with action figures and stuff. And so that's just a little bit of that. After watching my sister and some other people talking about the good parts of drugs and alcohol, because the DARE officers only talked about the bad stuff, and so I started hearing compelling arguments as to why drinking and using drugs might actually be a good deal for a guy like me, someone who's just crippled with fear and unhappy all the time. People coming to me saying they're having such a good time, it's a compelling argument as to why maybe I could give this thing a shot. So in 9th grade, it was like around Thanksgiving, I smoked weed and I drank, and I had a blast, and nothing bad happened. I'm one of those people who fell in love with getting loaded right from the start. The plan was to just do some on the weekends. That's about it. But it quickly became an all-day, everyday thing. I'm recently, within the past year or so, became a father. And I was, looking at, I have 2 stepkids and then one baby of my own. And thinking about like how I used to smoke weed every day before school, and thinking about like how tough that must be as a parent to see that. I remember I would smoke in the bathroom and blow it into the fan, and then get into the shower and blow some bubbles around and try to make it go away. And I got caught a few times, and just like imagining like, gosh, how heartbreaking that must be to see your kid just like, you can't even go to school without getting loaded. Like, I don't know. I was just thinking about that actually earlier today. Anyway, so that's the kind of guy I was. I was getting loaded all day, every day. I wasn't just alcohol at this time. It was anything I can get my hands on. As soon as I started, I was just Googling I was going through the medicine cabinet and taking notes. And it's like, can this get you loaded? Can this get you loaded? And I was just anything, everything. I wanted to feel it all, I'll never do hard drugs, but I want to feel it all, So high school for me was a really good time. When I drank, I could just be the person that I wanted to be. When I was a kid, I felt like I was the funny guy. I was the class clown. I had a good time, and then after, just kind of like when my head turned on and started, like what you would call self, if you will, just nagging all the time, and which I still have that today, right? I still have that voice, the voice that was telling me stuff right before I stood up here and got me all nervous. I still have that same voice. But I found that alcohol would just, I could breathe. And like I said, I wasn't just an alcohol guy at first. I played with anything I could get my hands on. High school was really fun. I made a lot of friends. I was able to go out and have a good time, hook up with chicks. That was what I was wanting to do. I never really, I guess when I was younger I had ambitions, but my ambition quickly became just like, I always want to feel good all the time. I'm a feel-good kind of guy. That's what I want to do. I want to feel good. That was my thing. I don't know if anyone can relate. So high school was good. I didn't really get in much trouble. I made friends. 2 days after I turned 18, I got arrested for the first time. I had taken some Xanax and was stealing things. That is a recurring theme in my story. So I got arrested, and I was trying to steal beer out of a garage to keep the party going. It was like some sort of cruel joke. When I was younger, through the beginning of high school, I could take the certain amount, drink the certain amount, and I'd hit the sweet spot. And I'd be good, and I could come out to play. I could be Pat, and people liked having me around, believe it or not. I was a fun guy to party with. And then it was like right after I graduated high school, something happened where I would be so excited and I needed so badly to be at that point that I'd just start drinking so quickly. And then I just started always overshooting the mark. And I started being a guy who's pretty pathetic, No one really wants to be around me. I went off to college, not to learn. That was not my plan. Like I said, I had no ambition whatsoever. I wanted to get loaded all day, every day. And I ended up leaving there after like a couple semesters. I had a great schedule, as far as like a partying schedule would be. I didn't have to, by my last semester I was there, I didn't have to go into class till like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So that would have been great if I was just drinking by myself and feeling sorry for myself, and I was just miserable, I started being asked not to come back to places. People that I didn't even know say, "You can't come here." I'm like, "You don't even know me." It's like, "Yes, we do." So I was just depressed. I felt like I just wanted to go back to where I grew up, and the people would rejoice when I returned. They'd be like, "Pat's back," and it just wasn't like that at all. So like I said, I really just started making a mess. Doing some things that, like it talks about in the book, and like if I hope no one saw, like just being horribly ashamed of myself for my behavior. Anyways, I ended up getting like an underage and a couple other tickets, and had to do a bunch of community service, and kept screwing up. And the first time I really experienced a lack of control, at least that I understood, was I don't know, most of the time I always, I wanted to get screwed up. That was the plan. I was going for that. And then I remember I kept failing drug tests that I was taking for probation, and I got loaded one night against my will. I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to get what I need, and then I'm going to do it tomorrow, right after my probation appointment. I knew a month ahead of time when my drug test was and my breathalyzer, and I knew I had a month to figure it out. And the night before, I'm like, all right, got what I need, and I just did it, and I was spending the whole night trying to figure out how I could pass this test, and they said, all right, you can either go to jail or go to rehab. So I went to rehab, of course, and by this time, I was pretty miserable. Like I said, I didn't really have any friends at all. I was really embarrassed. No one wanted to hang out with me. I was sleeping all the time. And this was only in 2012. So I got sent to rehab for the first time in 2012. And I was miserable, and I remember meetings coming in from people in AA, and I liked what they were talking about. It intrigued me. The thought of never getting loaded again was terrifying, and that's not what I was looking for, really. I thought, my understanding of, rehab and recovery was you go to rehab for, 30 days, you cool off, get off the hard stuff, and then kind of restart, And they're like, no, you're supposed to, not do anything ever. Like, oh, I think I'm at the wrong place. These people have problems. And, I could relate with the people. It was no mistake that I was there. I could really relate with. I was with a bunch of. I was 18, 19 at the time. I could relate with the kids I was there with. They drank like me. They got loaded the same way I did. They were having the same problems. But what interested me was the people in AA talking about finding a way to be okay regardless of what's going on, and not needing to get loaded to do it, and not having to sacrifice everything. And that interested me. And I liked the fellowship a lot. I got introduced to like the young people's stuff, Brad. Brad. Sorry. So it was cool, you know. I after like a brief relapse, I went to another rehab and like a longer term place. I don't know, and I ended up staying sober for a little bit of time, like 2 years, and a little over 2 years, and my life got better, mostly. I wasn't like blacking out and causing harm, but I was still causing harm. One of the things about getting sober, which I'll get to hopefully a little bit later, is doing all the little stuff for me, slowly changing my behavior, showing up each day. That was always difficult for me. I was able to abstain from drugs and alcohol and go to meetings and work some steps, but for me, I had a difficult time practicing these principles in all my affairs. I think one of those reasons is that it talks about it in the 12 and 12, like why must all AAs hit bottom? You know, who wants to do all these things that are very boring, and I have to go out of my way to do it. You know, I don't really want to do all that unless my life really depends on it. At that time, my life didn't depend on it. I was just miserable. My life didn't depend on it. I just hated myself. So anyways, after a bit of time, like I said, after a couple years, I got drunk again. And I did throughout that time have a little problem with the first step too. I would question, am I really an alcoholic? I never really tried to stop on my own. I wonder, you know. So I started drinking again, and it turns out I was an alcoholic. I really was. I really am. You know, it was actually a problem. It was 50-50, you know. Could go either way. So I picked up worse than I ever had been. You hear that frequently, you know. I blacked out for 4 days straight. That had never happened to me. I was using a little bit of drugs too, but mostly drinking, and that was weird. It was just 3 or 4 days later, and I sat up in the middle of the night. I was watching Kill Bill Volume 2, and I was like, what happened? That was a mess. I was staying at my parents' house. I have vague brown-out memories of me yelling at them. They're like, you can't get in the car, and I'm like, I need cigarettes. Someone's getting me cigarettes. Like, and they're crying, you know. It's like, it's not okay, you know, and that's all I remember. Anyways, I ended up getting arrested again. I'll give you one guess what I was doing. I was stealing things. That's what I was doing. And I blacked out, and I woke up in a jail cell. That was the first time I did that, too. I'd blacked out before, but this time I blacked out and woke up in a jail cell. Not even in, like, the police station. I'm talking about jail. Like, I made it all the way to jail. That's a whole process, you know? I remember kind of being in the police station, but not really. And then I was like, whoa. I didn't know why I was there. You know, I didn't know why I was there. That was terrifying. That was in 2015, and that was the first time I swore off alcohol and drugs for the rest of my life. I said, I will never, ever do this again. I am absolutely an alcoholic. There's no questioning it. And that was when I swore off for good. And that needed to happen. That absolutely needed to happen, because before that I had never sworn off, you know. I had never said, I'll never drink again. And this time I had experienced the effects, and I said, I mean it. And this started probably the worst 4 years of my life. It was a cycle, and I'll tell you some of the highlights, but I would get sober and I'd say, I'll do whatever it takes, and I meant it. And I did mean it. And I would do stuff for a little bit. And then I'd slowly lose steam, and I wouldn't do all the things, and I'd start thinking that maybe I don't have to do this, maybe I don't have to do that. And it would either be a couple months or 6 months or 9 months, and then I'd be so crazy inside of myself that I'd have to drink again. We're reading A New Pair of Glasses right now in our book study for my sponsorship family. And in the beginning of it, Clancy gives a little introduction, and he says something along the lines of, I have to drink again in order to preserve my sanity. And that makes a lot of sense to me. I lose control and I become an absolute insane person when I drink. But after a period of time of sobriety, I need to drink to preserve my sanity so I can breathe again. I'm going to blow my head off if I don't drink. And I said I would never do it again. And then the wheels start turning, and I say, but this time it will be different this time. This time, see, what I did last time was I started with vodka. You can't start with vodka. Rookie mistake, you can't start with vodka. So this time I started with beer. Now, the obsession hit me. I was working at a restaurant. It was probably like 8:30 at night, 9 o'clock maybe, and the obsession hit me like that. I hadn't been thinking about drinking for a while. I'd been thinking about putting a gun in my mouth and sleeping with all the women I could, and, just feeling like a piece of crap. But then the obsession hit me, and I said, okay, well, I have a drug test maybe in the morning. I was on drug court. I picked up a lot of charges, by the way, when I was, I forgot to mention that. I was in deep stuff. I was not well. So they put me on drug court in lieu of me going to prison for many years. And I was just stealing stuff. I don't feel like a criminal, you know what I mean? I just, does it really count if you blacked out and you're just stealing like change and ibuprofen? There was nail clippers in my pocket, come on. And they were charging me like an adult, like a real criminal person, It's like so anyways, I was in a bad place. And so anyways, the obsession hit me, and I said, okay, I just got to wait until 5:30 in the morning. But I know last time I can't get the things the night before. I learned that if I get it the night before, then I'll drink it, and then it'll be over. So I got to wait till after I get the probation, after I do the drug test, then I can start drinking. And so I did, and I started drinking at 5:30 in the morning and found a gas station that served beer. This was in Pennsylvania, so you can't just go to Fry's. It was just a little different. You have to go through a side door, not through the main door. It's very strange. Anyways, I started drinking, and then at 10 o'clock I found a bar where I could drink vodka, and then at 11 o'clock I found a liquor store that could open, because they have liquor stores. Again, it's very strange in Pennsylvania. So I started chugging vodka in the parking lot. And I thought, well, it was like a Sunday. I was like, well, it was the only liquor store that was open on Sunday. And I said, there's probably some stuff going on downtown in the bad area of town. I could probably go check that out. And I'm on probation. I mean, I know the plan was if I just drink beer, then they can't, I just have to stop in the evening. I just have to stop in the evening, and then I fall asleep, make myself go to sleep, and in the morning I'll be good. Anyways, next thing you know, I'm smoking crack with homeless guys, and it happens. I don't consider myself a drug addict. I just really love doing drugs when I'm hammered drunk, So I'm smoking crack with some homeless guys, and I do a little heroin because I got to live me down. And I end up overdosing behind the wheel while I'm driving, and they had to bring me back to life. They had to give me the Narcan stuff, and And I sponsor some guys who are actually drug addicts, and they're like, I've never overdosed. I've done heroin like 5 times. I'm an alcoholic who does drugs. It's a very bad thing. Because I just go, you know. I do way too, anyways, that's another note. So that time I ended up in jail for a while, and then I got an ankle bracelet on and had to go to rehab. And then this cycle just continued, you know. I'd stay sober for a couple months, and then I'd get crazy, and then I'd go back out again. And 2018 came around, and that was probably the worst year of my life. I also have some outside issues, diagnosed with OCD, which was a whole outside issue, but I got some help after I got sober, and I was able to get better. But I was dealing with that and alcoholism, and it was just a horrible place to be. After a while, I kind of just gave up. I didn't think that I could ever really get sober. What's the point of even trying? It was just like, let's just try to not go to jail, you know. I was miserable, you know. So, let's see. 2018. Oh yeah, I spent some time in Florida. Not for a fun time. They have a lot of rehabs there too, and I, you know, it happened again. You know, I woke up in jail, and anyway, so that just kept happening. And then I ended up in Arizona because they have a lot of rehabs here too. And like I said, this was rehab number 9 when I got here, and then they transferred me to 10. And I didn't think that I could ever get this thing. I was convinced that I'd die an alcoholic death. I could stay sober for a bit, but eventually I'd get loaded. So I was in a rehab, and they let me look for a job after like a few weeks, which was a really bad decision on their part. They shouldn't have let me look. They left me off their leash, and I walked over to Safeway and got a half gallon and started chugging vodka. Anyways, they caught on. Like, took them a couple days actually. I smuggled it back, and then they caught me. And this was January of 2019, so it was freezing outside, literally. And they're like, Pat, you know, give us your stuff. And I said, no, not drunk enough yet. And so I ended up spending a week living under a bridge in Prescott. It was in the teens, and I was drinking a handle of cheap vodka a day, again, getting no relief. You know, I couldn't drink enough to get relief. And I don't know, completely gave up. I never thought, you know, there's alcoholics who've had, you know, lots of time, like, you know, on the street and doing, you know, everyone's different, but I never thought that I would get to a place like that. I never thought my life would end up like this. Like I said, I grew up with a nice family. How could a guy like me end up like this, you know? So I ended up being like a missing person, and then, you know, someone found me, and I ran out of booze and money. That's really what happened. And my parents took me back to their house, and I detoxed on their couch. And then they brought me back to rehab, and I tried to convince them not to tell the courts, because I was just trying to play the game, you know, trying to stay. There was no hope for me, just trying to stay out of jail, because I hate jail. And after I went back for a couple weeks, and something happened to me. I ended up in a psych ward, as you know I do sometimes, and I wasn't going to kill myself, really. I wanted to kill myself, and I knew that if I go to the psych ward, they'll just leave me alone and let me sleep, and they might give me some good drugs. So that's why I went. And so I went there, and something happened to me. I had some hope. I realized for the first time that maybe I haven't given Alcoholics Anonymous a fair shot. Maybe I've just pick and choose what I liked and not done everything. Maybe if I actually did everything, something might happen. And I wasn't expecting my life to turn out the way it has today over the past few years. I just thought maybe I could stop living in this cycle of sobriety and drinking, ending up in horrible places, doing horrible things, wanting to kill myself every day. So I got out of there, and it was noticeable, you know. people could see that like something different, and it was just a little bit of hope. I ended up in a halfway house after that, and they kind of just made me go to AA every day and get involved in the fellowship. See, they didn't tell me anything new, you know. I'd been around the program. I could just finally hear a little bit differently, hear more. This time, it was life or death. But not even so. You'll hear speakers say that, like, I was afraid I was going to die, but I wanted to die, you know. I just couldn't believe it dragged on this long, that I was still doing this, you know, and it was just going to keep happening. And I hated everything. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I was the guy in the corner with the hood up. Don't talk to me. I don't want to be here. I couldn't wait until it was nighttime so I could just shut myself under my covers. And I cringed at that seeing daylight, you know. Fuck, I got to do this again. Just the anxiety, you know, of living life. I couldn't do it. So I started listening a little bit differently. I started doing a little bit more. I don't really know what happened. I just became willing to do all the things. I was still on probation, as I talked about. I was facing some time in prison, and they said, like, you know, sending me out here was like my last chance, and then I came out here and I, you know, had my escapades, and so I was realizing that I've half measured most of my time trying to get sober, and I realized that if I continue to be dishonest about the whole drinking while on probation and going and doing all that stuff, that I might drink again because of, you know, being dishonest. You know, one of the honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Honesty, they talk about it all the time. This is something I don't even know if I could. Maybe I could have, you know, got away with it. I don't know. But what I realized was it was like making a decision: am I going to do AA actually, or am I going to continue being the rehab reject that I've been for the past, you know, 6 or 7 years? Am I going to actually give myself completely to this program? And I realized that if I continue being dishonest, I might drink. And if I drink, I'm definitely going to pick up more charges and go to prison anyways. So I thought maybe if I tell them what happened, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe they'll say okay, or maybe they'll put me in prison, but at least I can be sober. And so I went through this whole concern, like, should I talk about it or not? And I was calling different people. And I ended up making the decision that I was going to, you know, it became the next indicated right thing. So I called probation and I told them what happened, and they said, you're not supposed to do that. And they said, you got to fly all the way back to Pennsylvania. My lawyer said, you should not have done that. He told me not to do it in the first place. And the cool thing is no one told me that I should do it in the first place. No sponsor should really say, oh, you need to do this. It was a decision that I got to make on my own. You know, because if it went south, then I could have blamed it on my sponsor. I was able to take charge of my life for the first time and make my own decisions, understanding all the repercussions and saying, this is what I'm going to do. And I kind of do the same thing with the guys that I sponsor. I don't really tell them anything to do. I just lay it out for them, and the decision is ultimately up to them. So as soon as I called them, I immediately regretted it. I was freaking out. Because they said it's not good if they're flying me across the country for a court date. And, you know, my lawyer said, you're going to go to prison for at least 1.5 to 2 years. That's just the minimum that you'll do. And I called someone freaking out one night, and they said, rather than worrying about what's going to happen, why don't you just focus the next 24 hours and do AA to the best of your ability. Call me tomorrow and tell me how you feel. Don't worry about anything else. Place your life, your will and your life over the care of God. Let go absolutely, and tell me how it goes, right? And so I did that, and I continued to do that because I had to wait a couple weeks. And I found myself on the way to the airport crying tears of gratitude. Actually, I had a tough time. The last 2 or 3 times I've spoken here, I've cried some. So it might come out a little bit, but Hey, what's up? What's that mean?
Is there a van driver in here, parked down over here, you're blocking the driveway?
Right when I was getting
Anybody
teary,
parked their van down here?
you ruined the moment.
Van driver, raise your
Van driver? Any van drivers?
Parked their van down here, the cops are out here. All right, thank you.
So anyways, I'll try to get back in the moment. So start over here. So I'm on my way to the airport crying tears of gratitude because I know I'm going to be okay. Because I had been in the bondage of self for the past, I don't know how many years, feeling hopeless. And now I'm on my way to be imprisoned, but I feel freer than I've ever felt in my life because I knew I was going to be okay. I knew that this was temporary and that I could keep this thing that I had found. I was about 6 months sober at the time, and I was doing this deal, and I was sponsoring guys, and I was being a part of. And it was an amazing experience. And I ended up in Pennsylvania, and I went to court, and they called my name, and I spoke fearlessly. I told them like what happened, and I remember my dad grabbing my leg, right? He was sitting next to me, and he grabbed my leg because he's freaking out, and I'm just like, I was okay, I had no fear, I knew I was going to be okay, and I told them what was going on, and they let me leave out the front door, They let me leave out the front door, and they said, go back to Arizona, something's working for you, keep doing it. I said, okay, and I came back, and pretty quickly got off track again. Alcoholism, what we really have is a daily reprieve, right? What I learned a daily reprieve is a postponement of punishment, a stay of execution. For the next 24 hours, what am I going to do to practice these principles? That's my job. I often get caught up thinking I have to figure things out and become a person and do all these things that I need to do, and that's not my job. I forget that all the time. What if I could just focus on being the best AA that I could be, And that's what I've tried to do, and I have not been perfect at all. Far from it. But the reason I'm still here is because I continue to show up even though I don't want to. Because sometimes I really don't want to. Sometimes my head tells me you have much better things to do. And then, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but you show up and you almost talked yourself out of it, and you show up to a meeting and you said, holy shit, I almost missed this, And it's like a bus just flew right by me, I've missed death nearly many times just because I continue to show up even though I didn't want to. And the other thing that I've done is I've been rigorously honest with at least one person. And doing those two things, I've been able to stay. And my life has simply just blown up about me in the best way possible. My dad, the guy I look up to more than anyone, he's become like my best friend. I met a beautiful woman, and I so badly wanted to destroy it, I really did. And it's funny, it's like, I think I know what I need to be okay. There was other women that I was chasing after before I met her, and I remember crying because it didn't work out with these other people, right? Crying after like 2 dates, not even. Because I'm so convinced that I know what I need to be okay, and if I don't get it, I'm not going to be okay. And then I meet someone who's beautiful inside and out, and I want to destroy it because that's what I'm used to doing. I'm a guy who's never been in a relationship longer than a month. I shit you not, longer than a month until I got with this person. And it was not perfect, but I called people and I said, this is what's going on with me. And I just was honest. And I haven't destroyed that yet. And we unexpectedly had a baby. And as soon as I found out we were pregnant, I knew it was going to be okay. We had only been dating for like 5 or 6 months, but I knew that like it's going to be okay. we had the baby, we had the boy, and he's become, I just can't really describe it. If you've met him, he's just a perfect little kid. I mean, he's only 10 months, so we'll see. But if you were here on Wednesday, Jenna spoke. She's a really bad alcoholic too. So, hey, Jenna. I think she's on Zoom. Yeah, she's a really bad alcoholic. So maybe like a double negative. I'm hoping for something like that, some kind of double negative thing. But he's the most perfect little kid, and I'm a step parent to two beautiful girls. Something recently happened where the 3-year-old, she ended up in the hospital, and she was there for a week. She had pneumonia and bronchitis, and it freaked me out. And I've been really stressed with like work and other stuff, and like I said, I haven't done this thing perfectly. I snapped at Jenna, because I didn't like the way she was reacting, and I'm just scared, And it changed some things, It changed the way, I don't know, it just changed some things. I think this is a bad thing that's happening. When things happen, I think I'd say, oh, this is a bad thing, this is a good thing, it's just a thing. And hopefully I can continue to show up and talk to my sponsor and show up to meetings. And I don't go through these things perfectly. I'm not one of those guys, like, when there's something wrong with me, there's something wrong with me. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I've tried to not, but I'm really bad at it. So there's something wrong with me, but I continue to show up, and I don't know. She's out of the hospital now. She's doing better, and she's I never thought that I'd have a life like this. I got a job where I was getting phone calls during this meeting because they want, that means I'm important at my job. They want to know, what do you think we should do, Pat? We're moving into a brand new house in a week and a half. Thankfully, I got some help from my folks with the down payment, but I have the opportunity, to be a homeowner. These are all just things, right? What's really cool is being able to walk into the meeting and know a lot of the people there and shake hands. And, I really look up to the old timers in this program. And I really hope to just stay for the rest of my life, Like I said, I don't do this thing perfectly, but I do stay active. Change happens all the time, and it's finding a way to get balance. And I heard someone say balance is something you say hi to on your way up and down. You find it, and then it's like some shit happens. And you're like, God damn it. So, kind of to sum things up is, I read this at a meeting recently, but it's just coming to my mind again. I just want to read it. It's on page 63. It's in the third step. It says, "When we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer. Being all-powerful, he provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. More and more we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his present, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, and hereafter. We are reborn." And that's what has happened to me, and that's what continues to happen to me as long as I'm paying attention. And I just really hope that I get to stay here for the long term. So that's all I got.